You know, it reminds me of the. Do you know the humane pin?
No.
Did you not see this?
No.
There was this like pin that you wore, and that it would have a projector in it, and it was supposed to be like a companion, like an AI, like Siri, but you were wearing it, so you don't have to take out your phone. But they went bankrupt like instantly.
Oh. Can we start?
Sure.
Okay. All right. Well, never really know how to start these, but we have here today with us Henri. He's been working at Hex-Rays for a few years now, but I'll let you introduce yourself to those who don't know you.
Yeah, so I'm Henry. I'm in my 20s. I live in Brussels. I weigh about 90 kilos. My favorite C++ keyword is override, or maybe namespace. I also like that one. And yeah, indeed, I've been working at Hex-Rays for just about 5 years on IDA, which if for a small fraction of the population is very relevant, for the majority is completely boring. So maybe some of the audience will benefit from my good takes.
Yeah, I'm sure. So what's your background, Lee? Because, well, I do know you, but from what I know, you didn't go to university.
Yeah, I didn't do university. I was originally supposed to go to university in Belgium, but I think about 3 months before the start of the year, the school year, I kind of realized I wasn't really sold on it, and I figured I would fail if I went there without really being convinced. So I went to one of the 42 schools, the one in Brussels called 19, and I didn't have that much conviction in it, but I had heard of it and I was very curious about it, and I figured the only way I could actually have let's say an accurate opinion of it would be by going through the system. So I did that for a year and a half.
So for those who don't know, School 19 is, or School 42 is a peer-to-peer, project-based, self-learning coding school. So you don't have any teachers, and you're kind of teaching yourself through the peer-to-peer.
It's very difficult to explain, right? It's like there's no teachers. It's a school. It is a physical place.
Yeah. So you go there physically, but anyways, we're not really going to talk about that. This is not a criticism.
We could do a podcast about the school.
Yeah. Well. Okay. Well, so you studied coding. You didn't go to university. You did a bit of programming before, so before joining School 19, so you had a little bit of knowledge already.
Yeah.
What made you want to go into programming?
I don't really know, to be honest. It's tough for me to recall.
Did you start like most people, like coding on Minecraft?
I wish. I often hear these stories about these people that learned from hacking games or hacking software or writing Minecraft mods. But I don't really fall into any of these buckets. I knew of programming starting maybe around 12 or 13. But for some reason, I didn't write that much code during my teenage years. It's something I followed, and I would follow the programming community as a whole. I would learn about new languages, but didn't really build. If I look back, I wrote only a few tic-tac-toe projects or something like that. I don't have a GitHub full of teenage projects to show.
Yeah.
So your original question about how I found out about it or how I got into it, I don't remember. I think some family member, maybe my uncle, told me that programming was a thing and it was on the rise, and it was very interesting. It would let you do, let's say, advanced things with computers, which I found interesting. That's it.
Okay, so we're here to talk about IDA. I just want to ask you, do you remember your first day at Hex-Rays, and also how did you end up there?
Yeah, so how I ended up at Hex-Rays is, and I guess it has some sentimental value for me, sentimental value. I think I was lurking on YouTube or something, and I saw one of the GeoHot live hacking videos. It's a bit embarrassing, but I guess I was young and naive. But I remember seeing him reversing some Linux binaries and opening them in IDA, and I remember thinking, wow, this is such like a cool use case of computers. I do some things with my Mac, but that guy's really pushing it forward. He's really like pushing it to the limits. That's so cool. I guess I really liked the the depth. And also I remember at the time I was like, what is this? Like he's looking at the code of the program, and it looks so like deep and like advanced. I guess I found it very seductive in a sense. So that's how I knew of IDA. And then I kind of always had it in the back of my mind that it was a thing that existed out there, assemblers, and especially IDA. And then I was looking for an internship, and I remembered the Hex-Rays, for some completely unknown reason to me, they're based in Belgium. And I was, okay, well, I figured I would send them an email to see if they would have me for an internship. And so that's what I ended up doing in the summer of 2019.
Oh, wow. Okay, while there.
Yeah, it was a while back. I was still very young at the time.
How old were you?
No, I was 19 at the time. So yeah, it was interesting showing up as basically a kid out of high school with all these guys in their 40s, 50s.
Yeah, I graduated high school at 19 because I from the year.
So yeah, I did the interview. I did decently well. For some reason, I'm not exactly sure. I never really asked them what they saw in me, because I think my programming skills on paper weren't that good. And the code sample I gave them was kind of stupid. It's the fractal project of as a 42, right? Where you're basically rendering the Mandelbrot sets in a SDL window. Quite simple, and was maybe 6 or 7 lines of C. Not that there's that much that you can show in there, but it was for an internship, right? They didn't have that much to lose, I guess, besides start time and hopes. But yeah, so then I think around May or June I got started with them. I would go to Liège, which is where the office is. And my first day, it's actually quite vivid for me. I remember vividly Arnaud, he's the dev team manager who kind of coordinates all the development of IDA. He sat me down, he gave me, this is your Linux machine, this is your user, this is your desk. And we downloaded the IDA source. It wasn't the full source, actually. It was IDA and the SDK, because especially at the time we didn't give the source tree to everyone. And he kind of sat me down and showed me IDA, because I hadn't used it. I might have used it a couple times, the free version, but we compiled it. Well, we compiled the SDK and then ran IDA. And he showed me, okay, this is IDA, this is the navigation band. You can see the analysis happening in front of you, and you would make me go to places where you'd see the row bytes, and then you'd see them being disassembled, and you'd see the multiple passes with the operands being annotated and so on. And it was very formative. I mean, looking back, it was great for me because it was fascinating, quite difficult, but not unbearably difficult. It was very challenging for me, but I could still, given enough effort, make it through. And so my first task then was to write a processor module, which is essentially the core of a disassembler. You take bytes from the text segment of a binary, and you convert them to instructions for the CPU. These are processor modules in IDA. So that's what I had to work on.
Oh, so that was your internship project at Hex-Rays then?
Yeah, actually, to be specific, it was the S390 processor module. So for the IBM mainframes, they didn't have support for that, and they may have had a few requests, and it didn't look that difficult on paper. In the end, it was way more difficult than we had expected, but I did an okay job doing that.
Okay. And so today, what's your role at Hex-Rays?
Today, I don't really have a formal title. I would say I'm we call them leads. I'm given a sort of topic I'm supposed to manage, and it's not so much manage, but I guess I'm responsible for, at least that's the way I see it. And these days it's the UI team I kind of lead, and I'm kind of responsible for organizing development of it, of the IDA UI in this case. So adding features, paying back tech debt, a bunch of things like that. And more concretely, a lot of my job is about, since I have some experience and we have a bunch of newcomers in the company, it's a lot about guiding people around and letting them know, okay, this is where you should find things. This is how we work. I review a bunch of code. I kind of guide them. I do some of design decisions around how the features should behave. things like that. So it's mainly centered around the UI. But since, for example, I've worked on the S390 processor module, if tomorrow there was a support request about the S390 module, I would be the person getting pinged saying, hey, can you look into this? So UI plus all of the things I worked on before.
Okay, so you still you're dragging with you your previous projects.
Yes, it is. We don't have an elegant solution for this at Hex-Rays. I guess we just try to, well, ideally you write software that works forever, but in what I'm trying to get at is that sometimes things evolve, right? So, for example, things like Golang, which I worked on fairly early on in my time at Hex-Rays, they used to change some of the core structures of the metadata quite frequently. Every, I think, 2 releases, they used to change the layout of the structures. And so either we would spot it before the binaries that were actually built because the next release of code came out, or some customer would say, hey guys, the processing module isn't working. And so then you'd have to kind of rush and investigate, okay, how did it change? And have support for it. So what I was trying to get at is that a lot of what goes into making good disassembler, and especially loaders and plugins that will extract metadata, is about keeping them up to date with the binaries that are being produced, right? If tomorrow a client in GCC or NSGC decide to completely change our code gen, we would probably have to adapt the decompilers and disassembler supporters, right?
Wow, that seems like they could just break everything if they wanted to.
Yeah, that is kind of the case. If you look at things that, so fundamental things like instructions, like encoding, you have to make new silicon for it, basically, right? If you want to break IDA, you'd have to make a new chip for the iPhone and then add a new instruction in it, and then IDA won't disassemble it correctly.
That's a good way to prevent reverse engineering.
Yeah, and I've heard of things being done like that, not specifically in iPhones, but if you find weaknesses in IDA, you could try to exploit them to make reversing harder. But then, so the disassembly, it's quite easy for us to fix, but you could also mess with like the format of your files, the format of your metadata, and then IDA also has to catch up with that. So we have a lot of work, and a lot of what we do is about heuristics, like detecting switch statements and finding all of the cases. You kind of have to look at what the compilers generate, how they translate a switch statement into assembly, and then make heuristics on top of that.
So you've also worked on iOS stuff. That's also why you joined the Hack Different Discord.
Yeah.
What were you doing exactly? Because you've told me many times, so I just can't remember.
Yeah, actually, I was thinking about this earlier today. What have I done related to iOS in IDA? I believe my first task was when Apple began splitting their shard caches into multiple files. So in short, the vast majority of the dynamic libraries shipped by Apple in iPhones and in Macs, instead of having, this is all about optimization and a fast start time, but instead of having to link them every single time a new app is started, they can pre-link them together into what's known as the DYLD shard cache. DYLD is the dynamic loader shard cache. Well, I guess it's like the shared libraries cached. And because, for example, the dynamic library for Objective-C, it's always going to link against libc, for example. And so you don't want to be performing that same linkage every single time you start a new app. So their solution is to prepackage those into big files. Anyway, this has been happening for a long time, but eventually they began splitting the shard cache into multiple files to, I don't recall the exact reasons why they did this. I think, I won't misspeak, but it's documented actually in the DOLD documentation, which is open source. But I was called in and said, hey, I was told it's the shard cache. No, it's split in files. Can you make IDA load them from multiple files? Mm-hmm. So that was my first task. It's not an introduction into the whole Apple ecosystem that we have to support, or at least we try to support to the extent that we can. And later, I did a bunch of other tasks. Some fixes for the shell caches when the format would change, which they do change quite often. Also, I never really got feedback from users about this, but I did a bunch of work on iOS debuggers for some reason, optimizations to make them, because in IDA you can also debug, right?
Yeah.
It's a controversial feature. Some people tell me they hate debugging in IDA. And there's people that are joking and unironically debugging in IDA because they seem to like the workflow. But I did some work to make debugging in IDA on with iOS targets more, let's say, more efficient. It was mostly about loading faster and not having IDA freeze for too long when you attach to a process.
So do you enjoy working on the whole iOS side, or are you enjoying the UI more?
I wish I would have more time for the iOS side. One of our, well, I would say one of my big struggles is prioritizing. I have so much work, so much things to do. Even if I worked nights and weekends, it will be impossible to do everything. So I always have to prioritize and pick whatever I think will be highest impact. And I do some amount of work on iOS, not as much as I wish I could, but these days the UI is kind of my
Priority.
yeah, and that's my priority, I would say. Most of the time it is my priority. And also, unfortunately, I have to watch over a few people working on the UI.
And you know what? I kind of enjoy that because I get to tell you what I think looks bad, and you get to fix it.
Exactly. You have a premium support as in 24/7 room next door.
So do you think you can evaluate your knowledge today versus the knowledge that you had on your first day? Like, what have you learned? What will you do differently?
This is quite a loaded question. And it's applicable in a bunch of senses, in a bunch of ways. A key one about just general knowledge of computers. I often give this example of the Project Zero blog that does research on like vulnerability and so on. I don't remember which exact blog post. I think it might have been one by Ian Beer about exploitation of Safari or something, an old blog post. And I'd read it when maybe in 2019 or 2020. I just remember finding it so confusing, and it's kind of confronting me and showing me, whoa, there's so much I still don't know. And maybe a year ago, I read it again, and I kind of had this aha moment where I realized, whoa, I still have some, let's say, imposter syndrome. There's still moments where I feel like I don't understand how computers work. But compared to 2019, whoa, I do know way more than I used to. So that was kind of a satisfying moment. So this is just a general knowledge of how things work. It's somewhat specific to exploitation and then the Darwin ecosystem. But besides that, I would say that as a programmer, I wouldn't say I write code that is significantly better than 4 years ago. Most of my improvements come from organizing myself, kind of also I have a lot of familiarity with the IDA code base, so I can navigate it very efficiently, at least compared to a couple of years ago. I'm very familiar with how our tests work. So my coding skills themselves haven't improved that much. I guess I have more maturity as a software engineer, if we can call it that, right? It's not just about writing code, it's about designing, putting together software that's reliable, that's stable, and more, let's say, conscious of trade-offs that have to be made, trying to draw a line between what's good enough to be shipped and what would take significantly more work to get done. It's our big challenge at times. We tend to have a lot of people within Hex-Rays that want to do the highest quality work, but that may take a lot more time, right, to deliver. So we sometimes have to, I wouldn't say cut corners, but we kind of have to say, okay, this is enough for this release, and then postpone work for later. So maturity, I think, is the thing that improved in me. And it made a very big difference.
Do you see a difference in your way of working as well?
Yeah. Part of it is out of necessity. I used to work a lot of hours. Interestingly, my productivity wasn't that high if I look at my raw output.
Can I just say, your productivity enhancement methods are out of this world. Can you just tell the listeners and viewers what you do?
Okay. So I haven't spoken.
And if he's lying, I will correct him.
I haven't spoken too much about this, but I have.
Tu veux en parler ou pas?
Yeah, we can talk about it for sure. Let's say that I care a lot about being productive and working on the things that matter, not getting bogged down, not going on tangents.
Just get straight to it.
So there's a few things. For example, I noticed that I was spending too much time on Google Chat, which is our instant messaging platform within Hex-Rays. And so, for example, these days I have sessions where I say, okay, now I'm going to block Google Chat. So I block the Google DNS and the servers so that I can't access Google Chats. That's one of my mild measures to improve productivity. I've also dabbled with, so I have a series of to-do lists, which are quite kind of nice. But the thing with to-do lists is that you have to maintain them, right? You have to go through them, make sure that they're not going stale. That's one thing. But then I also have a daily system. These days I use something called Intend, which is about setting intentions for the day. And so the thing that's nice about Intend is that it's really day by day. The actions, the intentions that you don't finish for the day, they're not postponed to the next day. They're just lost. So it gives you, let's say, a clearer set of things that you want to do for the day. And then you can close your programs like to-do lists and the calendars and so on. Just focus on the little tasks. Then on top of that, I also do a bunch of time tracking to see.
I was gonna wait.
Yes.
I was waiting for that one.
Time tracking is the freakiest one. I do a bunch of time tracking where I measure how long I've been working on a task. Well, I'm really going to come off as a cycle in this.
I think this is just somewhere on the autism scale.
Yeah, I guess it might be some of my autism for sure. I mean, but it's definitely for the better, and I wouldn't want to give a false picture of how I work. But yeah, the time tracking is actually, it's mostly useful for reviews, actually, to see at the end of the day if I feel like I didn't get enough done. I can actually look back and check, what was I doing all these hours? Mm-hmm. Sometimes I will check and it's like 3 hours of chatting.
Yeah, and sometimes when I'll knock on your door to talk to you, you will pause your time tracker so that it's accurate 100%.
I'm actually not right now at my peak freak productivity measures.
Remember when you used to film yourself?
Exactly. That's what I was going to get at. Yeah. At some point, I used to start an OBS session and I would record myself working. And then at the end of the day, I would review. And it's an interesting exercise. I actually recommend people do it every once in a while to see what they're actually doing when they're at their computer. And you'll notice, wow, I'm so slow at typing. I should improve my typing speed, for example. Or you'll see that you're doing strange movements with your face, or kind of, anyway, it was very funny. And
it's the best way to become self-conscious about yourself.
For sure. It was an interesting exercise. But it wasn't all bad though. It did teach me some things about how sometimes I would underestimate how long chasing some bugs would take me. And so it really made me become conscious of, wow, it's easy to waste a lot of time. And I think that's why I switched to my time tracking stuff. It's because I realized it was easy for me to kind of get nurse typed by a bug and spend 2 or 3 hours on it on a day, which may be worth it, but eventually I have other things to do, right? It's better to just file my findings in Jira and have someone else pick up on it, or just having me come back to it later. So yeah, that's my...
There's one last thing.
Is there? Wait. You try to remember.
You have a 15-minute announcement every time.
Oh, yeah.
So every 15 minutes, his computer tells him the time.
Yeah, so for the lucky users of macOS, you can enable this feature that lets you, or have macOS dictate the time at certain intervals. So you can have it at hourly or maybe even more, but have it set at every 15 minutes. So sometimes I would be in my room, so I'm walking in, and then you'd hear the robotic voice saying, it's 10:15. Yeah. Or even better, you should see people's faces. I've been in calls with using the speakers, and then eventually you'd hear it's 14:30, and then people will go, "Whoa, who is this?" And like, "Oh,
God?
yes." And then it's really embarrassing because I have to split. I have to explain to people, sorry guys, I have this thing that tells me the time. But yeah, I like to experiment. Let's put it this way, right? It's all fun and games.
All right, let's move on a bit here. So we go to a lot of conferences. You go to a lot of conferences as well, and you meet a lot of people who use IDA. Is there any of their feedback that you can actually implement?
Yes, to be honest, I think a lot of the feedback I get is mostly helps me prioritize, right? So it actually does kind of set an incentive for people to kind of repeat themselves when they meet me to push for the features that they want to see in IDA. But I rarely, every once in a while, someone will give me a sort of novel idea of a feature that we should add, but most often it's, hey, this is broken, or hey, this is a bug you haven't seen, basically. Or it would be really nice if you took this behavior and apply it more generally in IDA instead of just to this small components. I'm trying to think is if there's any example of something that was presented first, mentioned at a conference in person, and then I fixed it. I have to go look at my messages. I
remember once when we were at CCC, someone told you something, and then you, on the spot, fixed that.
That's a great example. It's a bit funny because that thing broke 2 weeks ago.
Oh.
Yeah. But so I think it was the previous CCC, I believe, right?
Yeah, I can't remember.
I think people were complaining about the fact that on macOS, if you launch IDA from the dock or just using the regular kind of macOS Finder or something like that, instead of running it from the terminal, you first get a banner that's kind of a sort of splash screen before you get to pick a file. And people found that annoying because they're opening a lot of IDA sessions and they don't care too much to see that.
The banner.
The banner. So right there and then I added a config option called show banner. That's a Boolean.
Oh, okay. So they can just edit that in the config file.
Exactly. And then it lets them skip it. So I guess that's a very small example.
And so which feature was the most fun to implement?
I think the work I did on debuggers, it was very inefficient. As in it took a lot of time for me to get up to speed with how the debuggers work in IDA. And also, how they work with what was it? It wasn't so much about the debug server running on iPhones, but it was also about the whole stack that you use to communicate with it, because you have to proxy the connection between the Mac and the iPhone and so on. That might have been fun because it forced me to run a lot, but it wasn't I don't think it made a big impact for our customers, right? I think the work that I did that had the biggest impacts, at least so far, must have been things like the Golang. I did the initial Golang support. Well, concretely, it was the metadata extraction to extract function names that was very valuable. I think people were very happy about it. I also built Golang signatures so that even if for one reason or another that metadata was scrambled, we would still have flirt, which is our static, it's for library functions. It lets you detect library functions present in a binary. Added Golang runtime signatures for those. And that was also pretty impactful, I think. The sharp cache support, I think this one was formative as well because it introduced me to the whole Apple ecosystem. So, but unfortunately, I can't recall any of this work being that fun. It's maybe it has to do with my personality, but I do have a lot of anxiety about things not being done as good as I wish they were, or having a buzz in it, or things being too slow. So there's not that many features at least that I worked on that would have had that much fun doing development for.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where we start. I guess it mostly has to do with how I think about I guess, work and development. It is fulfilling though, in the work I do, but it also comes with a lot of anxiety, right? Why?
All right, so let's move on to some technology related questions. Can we talk about the IDA dev stack?
The IDA dev stack. So I believe on our job listings it says C, C++ programmers, they have some knowledge of Python, and then it says no, wait, it's something like knowledge of assembly and unwillingness to write it or something. It's like willingness to read it, but unwillingness to write it. Anyway, as in kind of pointing out that you're not going to be writing assembly for Hex-Rays, you'll be reading it a lot. But concretely, it's a desktop C++ app. We're using Qt for the UI, which is a very, well, importantly, it's a cross-platform UI framework. It doesn't run in browsers. I mean, sorry, Qt has some builds that are able to run in the browser apparently, but IDA doesn't run in the browser for now. We do, so yeah, it's C++ development almost entirely, and then we do use Python quite heavily for everything that is testing related. It's not that glamorous. It is indeed, and it's important to note that IDA is very old, kind of. It's been out there since, it's been out there since the 30s. 30 years ago, so the 90s. And I think it came out
the
30s. Yes. So
yeah, before computers.
Before bunch cards, yes. It ran in people's minds, and then they would kind of talk about the imaginary computers to analyze. No, sorry. It came out in
30 years ago.
Yeah, even more. I think 35 years. Yeah, I'd have to check on the we have a timeline on our website, but I believe it came out before Linux or something, or maybe shortly thereafter. But those are the first versions, and if I recall correctly, it's so old and, let's say, old compared to modern OSs that at the time, I think it was running on NT. I'm not even sure if it was NT. It might have been DOS, I guess, but LFAC had to write basically a way to load code dynamically. There weren't things such as, or apparently, if I understand correctly, we didn't have shared libraries really. There wasn't a dynamic loader. You had to write that yourself. So you take the file, somehow memory map part of it into your process, and then jump to it. But it was super arcane, bare bones. And so all that to say that, yes, it's written in C++, and we somewhat frequently joke that if we had to write, if we had to rewrite IDA today, we may not use C++. We would use a language that's more modern.
Yeah, that was my next question, was if you had to rewrite IDA, what language would you use?
That's very difficult.
Are you going to say Rust? Is it even possible?
I don't want to please the people by saying that, but Rust would be, I think it would be a very good choice. Something, I quite like Go. Even though I haven't written that much Go code, I had to read a lot of Go code. What I like about Go is that it's very uniform and homogeneous, right? It's
homogeneous.
Yeah, homogeneous, sorry. And there's only so many ways you can do things in Go. It doesn't let you use that many different features. So Go code is fairly easy to read, at least in my opinion. Compared to C++, and I think that's very true, it's often described as, it's a great language with a ton of features, but you have to use a subset of these features for it to be good, but no one agrees on what subset of features. So, for example, these days, as we have a lot of newcomers writing code, contributing to our code base, they're using different styles, right? For example, some of them, they're using very modern templates of C++, or things like RTTI, so dynamic dispatch, basically, which is very different, well, quite different than our, let's say, older style of C++. And so the code becomes harder to read because some areas look very modern and others seeming way simpler and look a lot more like C, right?
Oh, okay.
So let's say that C++, I use it and I will write it professionally. I'm not a big fan of it. I think it's fine for it's fine for many projects. It's just that as it scales, I think you have to have a lot more discipline to avoid it going crazy. So to answer your question, probably Rust. I think it's one of the best.
Rust.
Even though I haven't written Rust myself, and maybe your velocity would be not good because there's kind of this thing that with Rust you have to spend a lot of time fighting your code until it finally builds, and then once it's
I've never written Rust, so I don't know.
That's what I hear from the developers. But what other option would we have, right? Something like Swift, it doesn't run. It's not really cross-platform.
No, that's not cross-platform.
Go, it's good. My one concern is that memory management, it has a garbage collector, so you have to manage memory. Well, you have to trust the garbage collector to do its job properly. And at Hex-Rays, we do like to have a bunch of control with that. So I think it's slightly too high level. Zig, have you heard of Zig?
Yeah. I think when I was talking to Pancake and I asked him the same question, he said Zig.
Huh.
I'm pretty sure if I remember correctly.
That might be true. I mean, I think Zig is very promising. I haven't played with it too much. And maybe I'm discrediting it because it's not as popular as Rust, but I think Zig will be other good candidate for a sort of systems programming language that will let us write a good desktop app.
Yeah.
So yeah, Rust, I'm afraid.
Do you actually use IDA yourself?
Do I use IDA myself? At times. I do use it sometimes. Though, so I use IDA myself occasionally. It's mostly, I don't do any VR or reversing of malware. Every once in a while, I will try a CTF and then kind of rage quiz. Or the one challenge I do like systematically is Flitteron. It's the one organized by Imagines every year.
Yeah.
This one is quite fun because it's basically RE only, right? There's no exploitation.
Okay. And so that's no answer for you.
Yeah, I guess for some reason I'm not really keen on exploitation at the moment. Or at least the challenges I've gotten to, right? Maybe at the later levels there is exploitation, though I doubt that's the case because it's about malware, typically. But so no, IDA, it's mostly out of curiosity. I'll take apart some binary and macros to kind of see what they're doing out of curiosity. It is important to note that it's very difficult for me to use IDA. I have this very strange relationship with IDA, as in I'll begin reversing something and then I'll realize, damn, this workflow isn't quite optimal. I should make note of it and like try to improve it. So I'll frequently, these sessions of reversing in IDA, I will frequently take a ton of notes, or I used to have this bad habit of trying to go fix the bugs immediately, but that was impossible because then I would interrupt myself all the time, right? So.
Oh yeah.
But I've talked with some of the Binary Ninja developers, and they told me that they struggle with similar issues, right? And it kind of makes sense, right? It's your product. The code is right there. You know the people. It's too tempting to go either shout at your colleagues or go fix it yourself when you run into a bug. So.
Yeah.
Not a huge IDA user, but I do. It is still a product I'm a big fan of, and I'll open for fun every once in a while.
So I have a LLM related question, and I think I only have one. So you guys do plugin competitions and stuff like that. Yes. Do you think an LLM could write a good plugin for IDA?
A good plugin for IDA. I believe some people have looked into this. It might have been when ChatGPT 3 came out. I believe someone tried to ask ChatGPT to write IDA plugins. And at the time, I mean, I was kind of in a typical LLM fashion. It would say, hey, these are the APIs, they're beautiful. There you go, use them. And of course, they're all made up.
Yeah.
Right? I was like,
because there are no beautiful IDA APIs, right?
Don't go there. It's too early in the night. But no, I think at the time it was cut by it. I think that today it will be a bit better. And also, I like to think that we could give all of the IDA APIs, feed them into an LLM. And if it's like powerful,
like for training.
Well, I'm not sure if it's for training, but just for context, right? And really not familiar with their internals, but I like to think that you can feed them APIs, and just like they can do vibe coding. They could vibe code you a plugin that does X, Y, or Z. Though to be honest, you could have them write a bunch of Python code. So for IDA Python, so they could write a plugin in Python. Maybe that might be easier, but it really depends what you would want to do with your plugin, right? You couldn't really tell it to. Anyway, we'll see how it goes. I'm not sure it would do something that's very sophisticated, but perhaps it could.
And do you think it could write like a source code?
Oh, do you mean like features directly into IDA?
Yeah.
Okay, so
IDA source code.
we have tried this a bunch. The initial reports were basically Claude was unable to write code in our code base.
Really?
Also, we joked that we had awesome job security.
Well, there you go.
But no.
Did you try other LLMs besides Claude?
I think that was a year ago. So since then, people have tried it again, and I believe it kind of works. Part of it had to do with you had to give it a lot of context for it to even be able to write stuff that's compilable.
Isn't that like feeding sensitive information to an LLM?
I don't know. I think we trust our, let's say, our suppliers.
we trust OpenAI.
In that case, it wasn't OpenAI. I guess we trust Anthropic. But I have to ask the compliance department what they think about this. But I think the work was fine. And to be fair, I heard that
beep redacted.
Let's Start developers use LLMs to code, so I think it has a lot more sensitive material in their. Perfect. Some company that we won't name that does something related to VR. Let's Start developers have LLMs connected to the internet on their machines. So I think if we kind of defer that burden to them, I think Hex-Rays is safe in that front.
All right. Anyway.
But no, so to kind of to wrap it up, the answer is LLMs are able to commit code into the IDA. Well, they can write code that will be useful. My one gripe with them is that they love writing code. And so they'll add a ton of new functions, for example, but they don't care as much about cleanliness and the code being readable. I mean, not so much function by function, but as a whole, for example, they tend to be fine leaving dead code around. So LLMs soon, I think they're good assistants before writing. Not quite there.
Not as clean as the human.
Yes, but I actually forgive them, right? I think since they're able to hold so much information in their heads.
You forgive them? That's so sweet.
Yeah. I see I'm trying to have a good relationship with
Good, yeah, exactly. Do you say thank you and please?
I do not. I heard that it's actually bad for the planet or something. You're wasting.
Yeah, I think Sam Altman said that. But you'll be happy when we take over. They'll be like, no, guys, don't kill him. He said please and thank you.
I believe maybe a fourth of the time I will say thank you. If I'm happy with their reply, I don't want to give them mixed signals.
Yeah,
but
very good. Healthy.
Yeah. I actually forgot my train of thought.
No, we were saying that you said you forgive them for writing not very clean code.
Oh yeah, sorry. So I forgive them for writing not very clean code because they, for them, it's not as, I believe for an LLM, it's not as frustrating to have a bunch of dead code or a bunch of impossible checks than for a human. Because for a human, you'd see those checks and wonder, what is this for? Is this even possible? Well, for LLM, they're like, I don't care. I'm just being overly cautious because they can hold a lot more information in their whatever brains.
All right, I'm going to move on from the LLM question. Sure. So what makes someone good at working on disassemblers generally?
What makes someone good at working on disassemblers? This may be very, well, as all my answers will be, but it might be very shaped by my beliefs around what's good for development. But I think that you have to be thorough. You have to be detail-oriented. I think it's quite important.
Okay. Where does the detail-oriented part come in play?
I think it's a lot related to the software that we're building being somewhat complex, and so being put in a bunch of cases that you might not have expected. Because obviously when you say disassembler, I don't mean one like obj dump. I mean one that's interactive. I guess perhaps it's kind of patronizing, but yeah, I do think that you have to be very thorough if you want to work on a modern commercial disassembler. And also because the people that will use it will spend a lot of time in it. So if you botch it, they'll be extra frustrated. And there's not that many options out there, right? So, and the way they're built, it kind of incentivizes you to stay in the disassembler. It's not like you can delegate a tiny part of your work to the disassembler, and then if you're not happy with it, move to something else, right? I think a lot of the work happens within IDA or within Binja. And so it's important that the experience end-to-end is good. So you have to care about, right? It's not like you're writing a program that will be opened for 5 minutes and then closed. It's something that's long-lived and has to be high quality.
Good. And so what types of other software development do you think you would be good at, knowing that you've been working at Hex-Rays for 5 years now?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think off the bat, I would say desktop applications because I'm very familiar with them, and I've spent a lot of time thinking about how do you have to reason about a desktop app? Not that I have that good of opinions, but it's something I can put a lot of, I'd say, time and reflection into. So I think that kind of helps because and I think I'll understand the struggles of other desktop application developers. Right? I think it's a culture and a product I understand reasonably well. But besides that, I think perhaps just the files that we look at and the fact that this is a disassembler, I do have an interest in other systems programming areas. So stuff like operating system developments, firmware, embedded development, debuggers, other tooling, things like that, I think would be interesting.
Do you get intimidated by large code bases?
Less so. I think at first it was a struggle, but the IDA code base is fairly big. I won't really reveal, but it's like in the millions of lines of code, which perhaps isn't that big, but at least when I showed up, I had only worked on projects that were
Couple hundreds.
Yeah, a couple hundreds, but importantly, it was always from scratch, right? But now I've worked in a very large code base that also has a lot of legacy code.
Yeah.
So I've kind of, I like to think that I've built an attitude of kind of bringing on, I'll deal with code that's 50 years old if needed.
Yeah.
So I'm not afraid of that.
What would surprise us if we had to open the source code of IDA, like right now?
The IDA source tree? Huh.
Yeah.
Try to think.
I mean, anything that you are allowed to reveal, obviously.
There's not that many secrets, and I think a lot of it would be reflected in our SDK, because our SDK is basically a stripped down version of our tree. So for example, the SDK gives away that we use makefiles. Makefiles, in my opinion, we've had debates about this within Hex-Rays, but makefiles for large projects are starting to show their weaknesses. I feel like they're a bit too old-fashioned. And if I understand correctly, you don't get the best performance out of them, especially in systems like Windows that suffer from a lot of file system operations. In terms of the code, I think also the fact that some of the code is very old still works, but it's like there's some very old code.
Yeah, you said the legacy code.
Yeah, it's legacy, but it's like to the extent that it uses macros a lot, which is very old-fashioned.
Yeah.
But I mean, aggressively using macros. Maybe, I don't know. At the Hex-Rays Museum, we'll present this snippet of code I'm referring to.
The what?
a snippet of code. Is
the Hex-Rays museum.
Yeah. We're gonna no, but it would be funny to do an extra video.
Oh, it's like this is news.
Come check out.
That would be fun though.
Yeah, or I don't know if we ever open source that part of the code. It's not super interesting in what it does. I mean, it's quite useful, but some of these areas are quite old. Yeah, I think that's about it. I think the modularity of it isn't that great. As in the IDA architecture, and it's been talked about before, but it's heavily built around the UI. It's kind of the UI is king, or at least it has been. And so the APIs are really tailored towards it. It's not uncommon for an API to, well, if you call it, it will then go into the UI and then call back into the IDA kernel and then call back into the UI. And this happens every once in a while because we kind of put the UI as a centerpiece of our architecture.
Okay. And so what is one class of binary analysis problem that IDA handles really well today, but would be handled pretty well automatically in like 5 years from now?
This is very difficult. It really depends on what happens in the next 5 years, obviously. And we'll see how far LLMs go. Well, not LLMs, but AI itself. And frankly, think if there's already something that today used to be done with IDA based on being done anymore. I'm not even sure, because IDA's been out there for a long time, right?
Yeah.
Reversing?
Yeah, it's since the 1930s.
Yes. Almost 100 years, right?
Wow. Can't wait to celebrate IDA 100 years.
Yeah.
Free license.
The quirky. But I'm not really sure. It kind of also depends. It depends on how IDA evolves itself. Maybe eventually IDA will have IDA will be leveraging headless a lot more, and you won't have to always open a binary. Maybe eventually it will give you a sort of report and saying, this is what we think it is. Do you actually want to open it to investigate yourself? And I think...
is this more for malware purposes then, or...?
Yes, I think it will typically be for malware. For VR, I think it gets a lot more complicated.
Yeah.
Until we have automated VR. Well, there's been efforts in that direction, but malware is a good example of.
What's the mental loop that you go through when you first upload a unknown firmware to IDA?
I don't really know, to be honest. I don't look at that much firmware. I think it's a workflow that we should work on, because the barriers to entry is still quite high. I think if you're not very familiar with the firmware block that you were given, putting it in IDA, unless if you're very, very skilled, I think it'll be difficult to get going. So typically I would, if I receive one of those images, I would use beta walk, I think. Yeah. Right? To try to figure out what it is. And then I try to see if we somehow have a loader for it, or actually what the regions are that I need to manually map. But yeah, I don't look at that much firmware these days.
Yeah, okay. Moving on to some more IDA questions. So IDA 9.0 introduced headless processing, I believe. What trade-offs did you make to fully expose the API outside of the GUI?
Oh yeah, so I think you're referring to the like IDA lib thing, right? Yeah. Yeah. So we've had headless processing for a long time. They used to be basically batch, where you would tell it do all the analysis, or maybe run one little script at the end of the analysis. Using IDA T, which was the TUI version. But anyway, now we added this, basically IDA as a Python module, which lets you do things like IDA pro.open database. You'll pass it a file as a path, and you'll do the analysis, right? And then you have all of the IDA API from the Python REPL or from a Python environment. It's really nice for everything that would require headless. Yeah. All right. Every time that you don't want to be interactive. Yeah. In terms of trade-offs, to be clear, I didn't work on this directly. I did kind of see the development of it happening. Mm-hmm. As I mentioned earlier, the IDA architecture puts the UI very much in the center, or at least that's how it's been up until now. So it wasn't that easy actually to make IDA available as a Python module, because a lot of the APIs kind of rely on a UI being there. And the headless mode in the past, the batch mode, would basically pretend that the UI was still there and kind of accept the dialogues that would show up, for example, well, the calls to these dialogues. So idlib for now, and I think that was a smart decision, it's basically a new UI that exposes, well, just enough for it to be available as a Python module. But basically, it's like, I think someone did a talk about this actually, but it's like a new UI, but whenever a call happens, it pretends that it didn't happen and kind of tries to handle it gracefully. Because the other option of refactoring all of our APIs for IDA to be usable directly, cleanly, that would have been way more work, maybe a year or two. So trade-offs, I'm not exactly sure. It's not super clean in terms of architecture, but it works really well right now.
Yeah.
That's why I think it was a good decision. And our customers are happy about it.
How do you decide that an architecture has enough traction
for us to add it
to make like a decompiler for it?
This is very difficult. I think we struggle with it a lot because it's tough to really estimate how many people will use it, unless if a large customer came to us and said, hey, it would be awesome if you supported this arcane processor, because then we know them and we have already a relationship with them, and it would help maintain that business relationship. But for the rest, sometimes it's just 2-3 users saying, hey, we need Nanomap support. We want Nanomap support. And we used to joke, I think it was for Nanomaps, that it was the same person creating fake emails.
They've been sending every day.
Putting on masks. And like, I think we met that person a couple times at conferences.
Oh.
So we kind of joked to us like, is that the same person as the last time?
That's funny.
No, we do have Nanomap support. So the answer is, we don't have a good method. And I believe that I heard the Vital 35, so the Office of Binary Ninja, see that they also struggle with this. Because in the past, they've also been asked, hey, can you add support for this decompiler? And then they will write it, and eventually there's maybe 5-6 customers buying it.
Yeah.
So it's not easy. And also the industry is very hush-hush, right? Like people are not very open about what they do. So sometimes you also completely underestimate how many people will use it. And they're like, oh, awesome, now we have support for Nanomaps. And
yeah, well, if they want it, they should ask for it.
Yeah, but I think it's also in the culture not to share English, right? There's a lot of things. I guess it's almost like therapy, but there's a lot of things that if people are to share, it would improve their lives. But they just don't, because it kind of goes against the culture.
Yeah. Do you still read raw assembly versus like trusting the decompiler?
This is a good question. And my understanding is that some people will switch the decompiler, and then eventually the decompiler will kind of underperform or remove some code, and then they'll be a bit hurt. And so then they say, okay, the decompiler, I can't trust it, so I'm going to switch to disassembly. Personally, what I often do is toggle back and forth. With a tab key, you can switch between the exact address that you were at the decompiler and then going to the disassembly. So in short, it really depends on what I'm looking at. When I was doing Linux exploitation challenges, I guess then I would look more at the disassembly, because for some reason it's easier for me to reason about, I guess, the layout of the frames and so on. For some reason, it might not be exactly rational, but in that case, but if I just care about the logic, or if I'm in a hurry, I'll definitely focus on the decompiler.
Okay.
But yeah, I think one of the ways I think Binja does this really well is that they have the multiple levels, right?
Yeah, intermediate levels and high level. Yeah, I love that.
So you don't have to trust the decompiler as much. You can ask for a lower level that doesn't do as much processing, and so it sets like into certain components, right? Tiny bits of disassembly.
Yeah, Oh, I really like that feature.
Yeah. We actually, it's not coming very soon, but we're working on improving a microcode viewer, which would essentially be something similar to multiple also of deconfiguration.
What anti-reverse engineering tricks that remain make it harder for IDA to process? Like make it difficult for IDA?
Oof, I won't give away any like big weaknesses of IDA right here. I mean, I'm sure I could think of a couple of things, and I'm sure if you Google online, some people like,
yeah, maybe this question is not really right because you don't want to give away the secret.
That's fine. I'll say what I think is appropriate. I think some people have had fun writing obfuscators for code that targets the Hex-Rays decompiler, and sometimes it kind of turns into an arms race, right? Where it's like, oh well, cat and mouse, right? So they'll write an obfuscator and then we'll try to work around it, and then like back and forth.
Yeah, people writing the obfuscators.
Yeah, there's a lot of it, and I think a lot of the value of scripting and things like IDA Python are exactly for writing good deobfuscation. But then there's still like awful things like VN Protect. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's like this crazy. It's like it basically turns your program into a virtual machine, and it becomes impossible to look at in IDA. I think the Mandarin people mentioned it in one of their podcasts.
Wow.
But it's a notoriously difficult target. The good thing about VM Protects is that if you're putting it on your malware, it's immediately suspicious. It's like, what are you trying to hide, right? So it's good as an anti-reversing technique and also tampering, but it's immediately suspicious.
Okay. I think we should move on to it because we've been here for a while. I have some funky questions and then some questions from my fans. No, I'm joking. People that had questions for you. But let's first start with the funky questions. What was the craziest feature request or bug that you've received from a user?
It's tough to really think off the top of my head. I would have to go into my notes or something. I do remember then that when we've had a forum for ages, but we made it up to date recently, and I think we also made it public. I believe you don't have to have an IDA license to go on the Hex-Rays forum. And I think one of the first threads that was created was, guys, when are you supporting quantum computers? As a what? What do you mean quantum computers? It's like, do you have a quantum computer opcode, like a ISA for your quantum computer for us to disassemble? I think they were trolling.
Yeah.
I remember kind of shaking my head at this.
Okay.
Maybe that person was drunk or something, trolling us. I don't know.
What are some crazy plugin submissions that you've received?
Crazy plugin submissions.
Yeah, from the contest that you guys host every year.
Yeah, maybe I can give some honorable mentions.
Yeah, go for it.
The one I always thought was funny was so I think it was only recently that happened, maybe 2019. But Hex-Rays added support for undo. So Command Z. Yeah. For the longest time that wasn't possible.
Really?
Yeah, it wasn't supported. And so I think in the whole story is that Ghidra added it, and then soon after I really made an effort to support it. And then someone, as a joke, made a plugin that disabled undo.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah, hard mode, right?
Was there a plugin for undo?
Oh, no.
No, but did people not create a plugin?
And 90 supports.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if people added some support for undo.
I think Geoffrey told me about this.
No, it's possible. To be honest, I wasn't at Hex-Rays.
No.
Like when I joined, they had just added support for undo or something. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Tanara Kane, I think is always.
Okay.
So that is an interesting plugin. But then in terms of actual usable ones, Lucid is the one that does microcode browsing. We've had the microcode browser internally for a long time. It's not nearly as polished as the one in Lucid. Also, it's heavily tailored towards the IDA decompiler developers. So that one I think is really cool. Maybe I won't. Well, I guess it's fine if I mention. Starbright wrote LabSync, which is a collaboration plugin, which I think. Yeah, it is public. Actually, LabSync was submitted to the plugin contest in 2024. And it's basically collaboration, but it's 80-20. So it's not a ton of effort, but covers most of the use cases. So if someone renames a function, it tracks it. And they use Git actually as the backing history, like version control system. It doesn't go as far as what we do in, for example, IDA teams, where we actually compare the IDBs. But essentially what they did is they took all of the metadata that they care about. So function names, types, and so on. And then they serialize them, I think, using YAML files. And they put that in Git. And it works super well, right? If one of your colleagues is on the same IDB, they make changes, you can also pull them and it gets applied. And if there's a conflict, it will show you in a text diff what you both did to the metadata that you compare. So I thought that was a very good plugin. And maybe lastly, I think someone from the iOS team at Interrupt Labs wrote also a plugin for the plugin contest. Well, it was submitted to the plugin contest that did hyperlinks in IDA or URIs. So it's like it lets you create a link to a place in your IDA database and then share it with your colleague. And then if they have the database locally on their computer, you can click that link and it will open it and jump to the address.
Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah, I thought that was awesome.
So my next question is kind of what's a plugin that you wish you would have built? Or that you think like, oh, I wish we would have built this.
I think that very last one by I think it's called $1 or something, but the one that makes URIs, I think it's awesome.
That's really cool.
And frankly, we might eventually I don't know what the verb is, but we might eventually implement that behavior into an area.
Okay, implement the feature.
Yeah, implement the feature, and hopefully, I mean, maybe you can push it a bit further because we don't have to write it as a plugin. We have more control, so we can get slightly better integration. But it was a great plugin.
So, last funky question: what's your favorite keyboard shortcut?
My favorite keyboard shortcut.
F5. No, I'm joking.
I actually don't use F5 too much. As I said, I use tab.
Yeah.
And actually, I recommend people use tab. I don't really understand the use for F5. One thing.
Why is tab better?
Oh, because it lets you switch between where you are in the disassembly and where it would be in the decompilation, back and forth. Well, F5 is just, I believe, decompile this current function.
Okay.
So if you're like down like 50 lines in a function and you want to see the disassembly, you quickly press tab. You just switch.
Huh.
Yeah.
Did you just destroy the whole F5 myth?
It would be awesome if F5 disappears, but
wow, those are big words.
Well, I'm on my.
I mean, you guys have F5 stickers.
That is true. Yeah, maybe.
Are you ready to replace the F5 stickers with the tab stickers?
We'll make more stickers. It'll be better. Actually, I was thinking of maybe we should make sell keyboards, and we make a special decompile key. How cool would that be?
Keyboards?
Yeah, wouldn't you buy an IDA keyboard? Like kind of like these thermal numpads, and it has like decompiled.
Yeah, no, that would be funny. Yeah. Good idea.
Go find new array streams.
All right, can we move on to the how would you say this? The fan question?
Community
question?
Yeah.
Okay. So from not a reverser, we have a question. For what reason did they change literally all the key bindings in the last major revision? And this one is specifically like aimed towards you because you actually...
Yeah, it's great that you're asking me because I'm literally the person that's responsible for this.
Yeah. So not a reverser. Just know that if you have any complaints, you can actually go straight to Henri.
There's a couple of things to be said about the whole. First of all, it's a new shortcut set. The old one is still there, and I think we're not confident about the new one, so we're definitely keeping the old one. And also, people have built muscle memory, so people that are just stuck on the legacy shortcuts forever. Why create a new one? I think it had to do a lot with the IDA shortcut set almost predating standard operating system shortcuts. So things like Control W would save the database in IDA. The Control W in most programs, it's close the window.
Yeah.
Right? So
that is the most confusing thing, except like if you were trying to mimic Vim. Were you trying to mimic like write?
I think that's where it comes from, right? But there's a bunch of shortcuts like this. I had a bunch of examples, which I try to find. But basically, it's about embracing the standard operating shortcuts, operating system shortcuts.
Mm-hmm.
It's also trying to have a clean slate to make new shortcuts for the actions that kind of matter. The issue is that the old shortcut set has about 700, or maybe it's 600 math shortcuts, right? And I think it's too much to ask to have that many shortcuts.
Yeah.
And we had this bad habit at Hex-Rays where whenever someone would add an action, they would create a shortcut for it. And so then you'd have like Control Shift Alt and then F, like some, and then like you have too many shortcuts.
Is there like a database with all the shortcuts?
We have a couple of shortcut cheat sheets.
Yeah, are they available online or is it just in Trail?
For the legacy set, it's available right now. The new one, it should be coming in the next few weeks. So the answer to the question about why they would break it, we're trying to make a new one. It's still work in progress. And actually, we still reserve the rights to modify it as we're trying to find a more modern shortcut set.
Okay. So iSpot Vones said, how much did it take to develop the ARM decompiler, and how the fuck do you do decompilers actually work? Plus, how much can you bench? Do you want to answer the last question first?
Last question first. I don't bench, so I'm sorry. Maybe I.
And how much can you lift?
I can probably bench 70 or 80. How much I lift? Yeah, I do all the things with barbells, but we won't go into it here. We'll keep the audience on their toes.
On their toes, okay. You can ask Henri how much he can lift when you meet him at a conference.
Yes.
But about the ARM decompiler.
It's kind of disappointing, but I didn't work on the ARM decompiler, so I can't really comment on how difficult it was or how it actually works. I have some ideas, but I don't want to, let's say, misspeak. But I do think that Elfhack gives some good talk about how decompilers work. And also, I would recommend John, we can probably link to his slides, because John, our friend, gave a presentation about how decompilers work, the three big ones, so Ghidra, Binja, and IDA. I think that presentation does have some good resources on how decompilers work in general.
I actually have a question from our friend John. What areas of computer science fascinate you the most, or you wish you would have more time to explore?
Areas of computer science. Off the top of my head, I would probably say operating systems. But also, especially these days, I really like programming languages, or at least the idea of them. I like how they constrain how you're going to express your software, how you're going to describe it. I think that's very interesting, and it can make a big difference. It becomes very theoretical, or at least it can. And I don't have a academic background, but I do think programming languages are very interesting.
Okay. Offline Mark asked, what are some common misconceptions that users have about how disassemblers / decompilers work?
This is also a very difficult question. But I would probably say that, I would say that one thing that I believe is underrated or underestimated is how much of building a modern disassembler is about building a very good code browser. In a sense, we're kind of competing with Visual Studio Code or Xcode and other IDEs. It's just that we're not representing the same level of code, right? But a lot of it is about browsing, searching, making annotations. Sure, there's a part of it that's about disassembling the program and having a good output and having good decompilation output. But once you have that, there's still a lot that can be done with good ergonomy, right? Good code browsing features. So I think that's the one that's underrated.
Okay. So Bernard asked, how is the testing done when a new feature is added to the decompiler?
How is the testing done?
Yeah. So how do they know that a feature isn't going to break the stability of other passes?
Oh, that's a good question. The answer is we love tests. We have a ton of we have a bunch of test suites. And I believe that we used to brag on our websites that we had like in the thousands of samples that we would run on the decompiler every day. And so, yeah, we just have a lot of regression tests that the decompilation output, but even some of the steps, I think, of the decompilation and the microcode, for example. So that's regarding the decompiler. And also, I'm not sure if we're still doing it right now, but we used to source files from, I can't figure out exactly what the source is, but we used to have basically a pipe of unlimited binary input files. So like a bunch of programs that were like found around the web, and would feed them the decompiler to see if it would crash it. And then it would find these crashes and go fix them. So the decompiler in that sense is very heavily tested and heavily stressed. And I think that is part of the reason why it's, at least I'm told, it's quite stable.
Sure.
So yeah.
So we have a last person asking questions. They actually have 3 questions. So this is from Q Kaiser. So do they use methodologies like Agile? How do they work on fixing a bug someone reported where they can't have access to the file that triggered it?
Okay, so using Agile, that was the first question. We, at least the IDA dev team, so the sort of core team that works around IDA, we are not very formal. We have one common meeting with everyone. Before the rest, we don't let people do their own thing. We don't bother them with a morning stand-up. If a sub-team wanted to do this, I think we'll be fairly open to it, but we don't want to impose it at the team-wide level, like dev team-wide. We don't really do sprints. We do have release cycles, and we kind of say, hey guys, it would be nice if these features are done by that release, but we don't have that much of the modern project management styles. No, not for now.
Question 2 is, do they have to fight with tech debt? In what form? What's something they love about IDA? Something they hate? Anything interesting? Or any interesting anecdotes about a feature request so out there? There's only one kind of org that could have asked for it. I think the last question is maybe the most interesting one here.
Okay, well, I'll give answers in the order. About tech debt, we definitely have tech debt, like a lot of places, especially because we have a lot of legacy code. And so sometimes with a lot of legacy code, you have a lot of momentum, right? And so if you want to go another direction, it's a lot of weight to carry. And so we do have a bunch of tech debt, but we're decently good at paying it back. And sorry, if you look at, I believe it's IDA N0, we got rid of the structures and enum windows, but also of the underlying systems. That was a lot of paying back tech debt. It re-simplified because at some point we had 2, let's say, type systems that were competing in IDA. And so that was an example of a tech debt. Then there was, next question was...
Well, something that you love/hate about IDA, but maybe we shouldn't.
So I had love or hate.
On peut passer à autre chose, hein, parce que ça te pas une bonne...
Try to think of, wait, let me think about it for a minute. What I love about IDA, I guess it's just its simple core mission, right? Which is it's just a interactive disassembler. I just think it's an awesome tool, right? I just love taking apart software. I love the fact that you can do that. So that's something I really love. What I hate, it's quite tough. I guess it's just that it is a lot of work. Or maybe you have a wrong perspective, but it is not an easy job working on this, right? We have a lot of legacy, we have a lot of users. It's tough to please everyone. But it can also be kind of energizing, right? Because it's a lot of stuff to do, and you can make big impacts if you improve things. But it is a lot of work. What's the last question?
So, any interesting anecdotes about a feature request so out there's only one kind of organization that could have asked for it?
I'm trying to think. So I don't spend that much time reading all the support requests, so I couldn't answer that much. But we've definitely had countless times, and I think it also ties into one of the previous questions. We've had people say, "Hey, I'm encountering this bug," and then we ask them, "Okay, cool. Can you give us the binary to reproduce?" And they're like, "Oh, never mind. No bug. There wasn't a bug in the first place." and then it's kind of frustrating because there's a bug somewhere. You're unable to reproduce it. Even sometimes we'll try to find tool chains to be built for a certain architecture. We'll try to build things ourselves, but sometimes it's super difficult to reproduce these bugs, and the user has it, but they can't share it sometimes just for leave of reasons, right? So no, I can't really think of any very suspicious requests for support.
This person has multiple questions, weird questions, but so it's the same user, Qquazer. So do you guys work on a mono repository?
Who is this person? Are they working within Hex-Rays? No, it's all right.
This is Quentin Kaiser from a researcher at One Keysec.
Do I know this person? I do know. Monorepo, we do use a monorepo. The thing is, we don't have. We could have like a bunch of repositories. For example, we could put IDA Python in some repository because it's open source. But just the way our code is structured right now, as I said, the modularity isn't awesome. So there's a lot of dependencies, and having monorepo kind of helps us survive.
How's the dev team organized, and what's everyone's responsibility?
Dev team, I'll be brief because some of this changes, especially as we're trying to organize ourselves and we're growing. But it's basically, I think, around maybe 16 people, maybe a bit less, and it's divided into 4 or 5 teams working on separate parts. For example, there's the UI team, which I'm a part of. There's the core team, which is working on the IDA kernel, which is basically the part that coordinates everything. There's a team working on the decompiler, and then so on, right? We have 2 other teams. So there is some division. They're not perfect silos, and there's a lot of contribution across teams. Like frequently, something for this last release, for the UI, we had to add some indexing mechanism. This has to be done in the kernel, so we had to discuss these changes with them. It's not that advanced, to be honest.
Okay. How do you debug the debugger?
It might sound tricky, but the times I've had to do it, I did use printf debugging quite a lot. It's quite efficient. Especially so the case where debugging is annoying, debugging debuggers is annoying, has to do with timeouts, right? If there's a server on the other end of the debugging session and you're debugging the debugger, the server is going to say, "Hey, I haven't received a reply in like 20 seconds. I should cut the session," right? Because you're fast. Yeah. So in those cases, I've used printf a lot. The thing that's annoying with printf is that you have to recompile, and you may have to reproduce, right, the bug multiple times, and like recompile, add print statements, rerun it, right, to get more information every time.
Yeah. Okay.
That can be slow. The other solution has just been to think really hard and then do it in one LLDB debugging sessions.
Okay. Also LLDB, yeah.
Yeah, or GDB. I don't like GDB too much these days. I feel like it's a bit complacent. Like, I don't know. I feel like it's tedious to use, but LLDB has been pretty good, to be honest.
Okay.
That's the debugger I recommend.
Yeah.
Or, sorry, I mean, you should use IDA first.
Yeah. Always use the IDA debugger first, then LLDB, then...
Yeah, GDB, if that's the last thing. Maybe try print statements before.
What about Pwn debugger?
Pwn debug? I think it's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
I do find it a bit daunting. I guess I'm used to this using LDB, I'm used to this very minimalistic interface with a REPL. You open PwnDBG, it's like full of displays and things and widgets.
And colors.
And colors as well.
I love it.
No, I do think it's awesome.
Okay, I went over all of the questions. Now, do you have any last advice that you would like to say? Something funny that happened at Hex-Rays that you can share? Just anything to conclude this interview?
Advice? I don't know. I guess... So this will apply to everyone except maybe like 15 people that are sending us a ton of emails. But it will be useful if a lot more users gave us feedback.
Okay.
A lot of people, they just wait until I run into them at a conference, to give me like all their complaints. And they're major things, right? Things that are inhibiting their workflows, and they just wait until I meet them in person. It will be way easier if they just send us an email to the support. Mm-hmm. And even if they don't have a license, we'll probably address it. They might not get access to it if they don't have an active license, but we take care of these things. So yeah, that's about it.
I have a question for you. What's a new feature that you're really excited about from the new release?
A good question. So with 9.2, internally our favorite widget, or we cannot say it's our favorite widget, there's a bunch of other ones, but we're adding something called the reference tree, which lets you browse cross-references across multiple levels. So for example, you'll be able to see the call hierarchy, go in a function, and then see who calls this function, but then who calls the parent of that function, and so on, right? Mm-hmm. It gives you a lot of power in terms of browsing code and getting context. So I think it's awesome. It's gorgeous.
And which feature that you worked on are you excited?
In 9.2, I don't think there's...
Come on, there is one specific one that you worked on that's great.
Is there? Do you have one in mind? No. The
back of...
Oh yeah, sorry. It wasn't even me. Well, I guess I might have been the person that submitted that patch, but I guess I can tell the story. You and I were on a plane to somewhere east, and you are using IDA for, I think, one of your first times.
You told me, yeah, open this in IDA. That's why I opened it in IDA.
Yeah, sorry, so you are using IDA, and then you were browsing code or something, and then you...
No, I first opened it, I'm like, where's the code?
Oh, yeah.
Because I had been using Vinja, and then you're like, oh, you have to press tab, and I'm like, okay, thanks for telling me. And then I was like, how do I go back? And you're like, oh, well, you have to press, what was it, escape or something?
Yeah, you have to press escape to go back. Mm-hmm. And then you asked me, but where are the arrows?
Yeah.
The thing is that the arrows we had were very, they didn't look like arrows. They were very advanced. They looked like waypoints on a map.
Yeah, they were weird. So I asked Henri to change it, and he did, and it's coming in the
9.2. Do you know what's awesome is these icons had been ready for ages. We just didn't use them.
Yeah, because, mind you, this was back in October 2024. So in July 2025, we get the new arrows.
Yeah. Only took us a year, but we finally managed to put them in place.
Yeah, I think it was not the most important feature to add, but...
No, we've got some good changes in 9.2.
Yeah. Do you want to tell any other new features to get people excited?
There's so much. I mean, I think personally, I also really like the 9.2 Golang decompilation supports is a lot better.
Cool.
We're trying to add, we have global navigation. So it's kind of an old thing, but when you used to press escape, it used to work most of the time, but if you switch into another type of widget, so let's say that you went from decompilation into types, and then you press escape, it wouldn't work. But now we've kind of unified navigation into one navigation stack. It's a subtle thing, and people may not even notice it's fixed, but it's a big deal. So things like that. There's a lot. People should check out the release notes when they come out.
Yeah. Oh, they're not out yet.
Right now we have the beta notes.
Well, they'll be out by the time this.
They'll definitely be out by the time this airs.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Well, thank you so much for joining, and well, I hope we answered most of the community's questions. And
Yeah, I think we did decently.
Yep. High five. Great. All right. Well, have a. Oh, yeah. I actually wanted to finish the podcast by saying, if you have any feedback about this podcast, if there's anything that you want to know, or people that you think I should reach out to, please let me know. I think you can leave comments or things like that. Or you can just reach out to me on Twitter. Also, I quit my job, so if you want to support this podcast, there is a link in the bio, I guess, of my podcast. But I will also put it in my link tree on Twitter. So yeah, like if you like this, feel free to support if you can, obviously. So yeah, thanks for listening, and looking forward to hearing from you all, and see you next time.
Take care.
Take care. Bye.